said he had a helmet of brass. The conservative, given the estimated size of his head, the conservative estimate is that his helmet was about 15 pounds. 15 pounds. And then he was armed with a coat of mail. Now the coat of mail is not as you would see these Romans where it's going down to the sleeve and it's like a bodysuit. It's not that. The arms are free. It's over the shoulders. And sometimes it goes just about the waist. But that, it says, is the weight of the coat was about 5,000 shekels of brass. That's 125 pounds. That he's carrying around on his shoulder in a battle with a helmet on that's 15 pounds at minimum. Then we go on, and it says that he had greaves of brass upon his legs. And what the greaves are, we would look at them as shin protectors today, from the knee down, covering the front. And usually, a man in battle that has a greave may only have one on the left foot, because that was the one that was exposed the most. It says that he had it on his legs, so he's got both feet covered in this way. And the estimate on this is also 15 pounds per greave. So now he's walking around with these weights on his legs. Well, for us, they're weights. He's just walking around with this stuff. And that's 30 feet on his feet. He's got 30 pounds on his feet. He's got 15 pounds on his head. He's got 125 pounds. Where's Terry? Terry and I were talking about weightlifting once, and she was boasting how much she could bench. And she could probably bench more than me. But you have, when you have the combines, Greg, you watch the NFL combines. I know you like football. You've got these big guys, and they're boasting that they can pump 225 pounds, 30 times or what have you, and afterwards they just look so exhausted, and they need help to get the last one up. But you're going to see how much Goliath is carrying around with ease. Let's continue. And then it says that he had a target on the back. So slung on his back was a javelin. And the estimate of that javelin was another 15 pounds, because we don't know, they're just judging from his height. And it says here, this is so interesting for me, it says here that the staff of his spear, this is verse 7, the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and a weaver's beam is about another inch thicker than a fence rail that we would see today. And the head of the spear was 16 pounds, is this head. Now, as I shared with some folk on Wednesday night, when you watch the Olympics and they do the shot put, the shot put ball is 15 pounds. Goliath's spearhead is 16 pounds. Now, if someone were to just take a shot put and just drop it on your toe from 2 feet, you're in some trouble. Goliath chucks his spear with 16 pounds. When that reaches you, pray to Jesus. It's over. It's done. Now, to balance out the head of the spear, it's estimated that the staff is about 10 pounds. So he's carrying around this 16 pounds. He's got another 15 pounds on him. And what we don't hear of, which is his sword, is estimated at another 15 pounds. We know he has it because that's what he gets decapitated with. And when you add all the numbers together, of the things we know he has, he's walking around with an extra 225 pounds. And he can run around with that. And he can go to battle with that. This is a big guy. Most men don't even weigh 225 pounds. And this giant of a man is carrying around that. If he wanted to just kill you, you could just throw all his stuff on you. And it'd be over. I mean, that's how ridiculous it was. But isn't this too what the devil does? I mean, he is overwhelmingly powerful compared to us. But he picks on a man. He picks on a woman. he picks on a child. And God forbid, they don't go to battle with Jesus Christ next to them. You have no chance of winning. Now, the reason that Goliath is making such a big to-do is because he knows that he's a manly man. He's the biggest of those there. He's got 4 brothers, but they're not quite as big as him. He's got some other relatives that were taller than him. I don't have time to go into those texts today. They're just the giants throughout the Old Testament. God talks about him cutting down these giants that were as tall as the oaks, and he cut them down from their fruit down to the root. You've got stories in the Bible of these giants who need a 13-foot bed just to sleep in. It's there. So he's not the biggest one, but he's the one that we're dealing with as spiritual Israel today. And he's touting the man he is because he wants to fight another man. And the army that he's going against, he only knows as Saul's people, Saul's servant, because Israel had given up their God and asked for a king. Next week, we're going to talk about that king a little bit, and you're going to find that this king was scared to go to battle even before the battle was drawn, and that the Philistines were scared to go to battle with Israel because of something that happened in 2 previous chapters back. It's just a delightful story. I don't know how the Bible is so good, how we get caught up in all these TV shows. This right here is drama, unbelievable. Unbelievable. But he has a right to call out and say, servants of Saul, because he's not seen anything about God. No, there's no mention of God until my man David comes on the scene. The king of Israel is there. He doesn't mention God. The captains are there. They don't mention God. No one's shouting back to Goliath. Everyone is dismayed. The king doesn't have God. The captains don't have God. And I'll tell you, folk, that people will go as their leaders go. And if your leader is not a strong leader, that group will crumble. If that leader is not God-fastened, that group will crumble. And Saul is not a man of God. And so Goliath can rightly say, aren't you servants of Saul? But God always has a plan. God has his men. On your job, God has his men. Oh, they don't look like you. They don't say they're Adventists, but they're God's men. Why do you think you got that job? Why do you think you get by when you don't produce as much as you should? God has his men. He uses anybody. He has his men in your community, in your home, at school, here in the church. He has his men. And if you hold on to him, his men and his women will support you. Here we have this battle. And the Israelites are scared to death. The champion comes out and defies them. And God sends not a big man, not an experienced man, but his man. I want you to understand, sometimes God will send you to save a battle. And you won't look the part, but God sent you. They might not even accept you as that part, but God sent you. And when God's man comes on the scene, the first way to know that this is God's man is God comes out of his mouth. As soon as David comes on the scene, the conversation is different. Let's take a look at that.